sprint, but it was Kennett who won the battle from the peloton to collect a 2-second time bonus to move him into the virtual race lead by half a second. Rolled on, did some yoga, surrendered and went back to the relative comfort of the peloton as Wanted Group Goubert took over control at the head of the field, looking after Boris Valet. With a little over 15 kilometres remaining, a breakaway group of 3 formed at the front, but they were never given too much latitude and they were reeled back in with just on 7 Ks to go as the teams of the sprinters tried to get organised. With 1,200 metres still to race, a fall in the midway point of the peloton, the good news being nobody seriously injured and the big favourites managed to avoid the carnage. As the speed heated up at the front, the green jersey Kennett was making the most of the strong lead out by Blake Quick, waiting patiently. Benfato blasted by. Kennett got onto his wheel. Paolucci tried to squeeze up the inside. Then it was a battle between the Italian and the Kiwi, and in the throat of the line, neither Benfato or Kennett was convinced that they'd won. They waited for the photo, and it was Benfato who got the nod. Kennett in second position. It was Jones in third. And the time bonus giving Kennett the lead. On to stage 2, and the orange jersey now on the shoulders of Dylan Kennett as the festivities got underway before the start of the stage. They rolled out under ideal conditions, barely a breath of wind to speak of. The red jersey sitting on the shoulders of the leader of the best Chinese rider classification, Bei Ling Jun, as one of the men from Hong Kong. It wasn't such a good start. In fact, at number 201, crashing on the very first corner, that was To Chuk A, and eventually he abandoned the race. Breakaway group of 3 formed midway through the stage, and it was Zakarai, number 171 from Team Sapura, the Malaysian rider, who at the end of the day was awarded the most combative. Despite their efforts and on flat stretches of road touching speeds of 70 kilometres per hour, the St. George Continental team controlled the peloton and reeled them back in. But in the mad dash through to the line, it was the Italians who made it 2 in a row. This time, though, it was Matteo Paolucci who got the stage honours as Emerio Cima, the blue jersey, crashed heavily going across the line. Kennett finishing in second place once again, defending his overall race lead. Paolucci in second, Kennett in second position.
Boys are at the front all day today, which is impressive, and yeah, and it's awesome having young Blake looking after me. He's a big boy too, so he's good sit. But we had to do a bit of work in the last couple of K to get up the front, and so to take second today after where we were at the 3K, I'm happy with that.
Kennett, 3 second place finishes so far. Surely a win's not too far away. And with the time bonuses, he's extended his advantage to 12 seconds ahead of Brandel. His teammate Vink is in third position. The stage is all set, just about ready to get underway in front of the Olympic Stadium in Huzhou. The peloton, a couple of non-starters as a result of the falls from yesterday. Good to see plenty of cyclists out on hand, ready to watch the start, and the music on hand to welcome the riders. As is the case before the start of each of the stages, some local performers come up on stage, some of them more culturally significant, others a little bit more modern. This time, some modern music to welcome the riders before they get through to the sign-on. Sign-on is always one of the great opportunities for the locals to see who the stars of the race are, and they arrive en masse, courtesy of the race organisation, who do a brilliant job supplying the buses and the infrastructure at the start and the finish of each stage. This is Penva, the Spanish sprinter, signing on, the leader of the Chinese classification. This is Bay, who's been riding well. Jones, he's had a third place finish so far. He'll be hoping for better than that today. Number 42, that's Brandel, who sits in second position overall, and he signs with a love heart. That is good to see. Paolucci, yesterday's winner, and Benfato in the green jersey, the leader of the points classification, on loan, as Kennett is the actual leader there. The black helmet with Boris Valet, he is the defending champion. He's got himself reasonably well placed. He's inside the top 5. The blue jersey, that is Jimma. Here is Bai.
个长行线程的时候，有一段围绕太湖边的那个侧风，我们要注意一些。如果说这些细节我们做好的话，我要么这个红衫应该是没有问题。OK。
Hello, he's very happy in China. It's the second race the year. It's a motivation for the race.
Yeah, yesterday I was on the sprint too far away at 300 meters, but I could pass on the last 200. But today I'm gonna try again to do my sprint and try to take some bonification second to come back on the GC. I try the stage and the GC also this year after my product.
The team is very happy for 2 victory. I have the team have 2 sprinter and I have 2 jolly for the sprint, and it's very good because the sprint in this race is very difficult for take position, and today I don't know the race. I hope no rain and go faster for have a good result.
The objective today is just to try to keep it together again for another bunch sprint. And hopefully pull back some sprint points as well, and same with the time bonuses. So hopefully it's a non-eventful day.
Here's a look at what confronts the peloton. It's 117 kilometres, starting in Huzhou, making its way through to Shangjing. The first sprint comes after 15.5 kilometres, all important time bonuses, which Kenneth referred to. The second one at the midway point, 53.7 kilometres covered. Then they come into the closing circuits. They sprint at 81 kilometres to go, 2 laps around that circuit, so they'll get a dress rehearsal as to what the approach is to the finish line. Guns ready to go for the start of the stage. Often you see the riders on the peloton waiting for the guns to go at the start of a bike race when the trigger is pulled with their fingers in the air to avoid some of the noise. At the start of the Australian National Championships, they have it in Sovereign Hill where they have the old musket guns, and the bang is really loud. You can almost feel it reverberate through your chest. The cap's been let off at the start today, not quite as loud. They make the start today in front of the Huzhou Olympic Centre Stadium. This is a brilliant stadium which in May of 2017 it was awarded first class IAAF venue certification for athletics. It seats some 40,000 people. In addition to that, it also hosts basketball, volleyball, badminton and table tennis. And if you were able to see it at night with it lit up and from an aerial shot, you can see that it looks very much like a lily, a beautiful flower that is widespread throughout the Taihu Lake area. The beginning of the stage today, a little different to what we've seen on the previous couple of stages. There is a very brief neutral zone, which always provides a little bit of tension within the peloton as the riders do battle, those at least that want to get themselves into an early breakaway, to get to the front, get themselves in a position for when that flag comes in and the racing does get started. Perhaps the mood of the peloton was best described by the Italian Marco Benfato in the green jersey we heard from earlier on, stating he hopes it doesn't rain and he hopes he can go very fast. Well, it has rained overnight. It's stopped raining now, and the fact that it did rain overnight could work out to be a bit of a blessing for the peloton. It cleans the roads somewhat. It's also cleared the air just a little bit, and the weather conditions, once again for racing, are just about perfect. At the front of the peloton, this is Declan Irvine, the young Australian on the Novo Nordisk team. All the riders on this team in the blue colours, Novo Nordisk, they have type 1 diabetes. Every single rider on that team does, and they put in some brilliant performances. Just a little bit of extra management for the guys with type 1 diabetes in terms of getting up earlier, taking their insulin levels and making sure that everything is in order. There's some of those things that we do where we just rush and get out of bed in the morning that we take for granted that they can't quite do. They've just got to get up that little bit earlier, go through the process to make sure the blood sugar levels are all okay. The Delco Marseille team amongst the thick of the action early in the stage, looking to try and get themselves in the breakaway. The sprinter on that team, Brenton Jones, he was third on stage 1, He was a little bit further back yesterday, finishing in 13th position. Jones today will be hoping for a little bit better than that. The Delco Marseille team, they don't quite have the lead-out train here to be able to support Brenton Jones. So they've got two young French riders in particular, Alexander Delateur and Remy Rocher, who can get themselves into the breakaway. And I expect on stage 5 that we'll see Remy Rocher certainly looking to join the Colombian team, Medellin, in the breakaway on that day. It feels like a big dark cloud looming over this race, stage 5, with the major climbs of the race coming on that day, and a real opportunity for the non-sprinters to have an impact on this race. In contrast, for the sprinters, it's every other stage where they need to make the most of the time bonuses, try and build up a little bit of a buffer just in case they do get distanced on that climb. Pink colours of the St. George team riding at the front, just controlling the race, not too worried about all these little breakaways. You can see just sitting there in 4th position, the toot-toot on the train, ready to start rolling. 3rd place in the light blue colours, that is Simon Carr. He's on a stagiaire stint with the Delco Marseille team. British rider with that squad. Stagiaire, it's essentially a long format job interview. 3 months at the end of the season with the team, and then the team makes the decision as to whether they want to sign you on for the next season or not. Last year for that team, that was the scenario for Remy Rocher, and he did get signed on for the team for the following 2 years. Number 54 at the back of the peloton, this is Etienne van Impel. He's the only non-Italian on this team. This is the Neri Sottoli team. He's a Dutch rider, 24-year-old. He spent some time with the Rabobank development team at the next level down before making the step up to the Italian squad. They performed reasonably well yesterday, the Neri Sottoli team. They had 2 riders inside the top 10. Luca Paccioni is their best sprinter. He was in 9th position. Their young sprinter, Mattia Bellivacqua, he finished in 10th place. Looks fairly relaxed down towards the back of the peloton. Number 43, you can see at the back of the peloton, that's Michael Reim. He was reasonably good on yesterday's stage. He finished in 3rd position. Reasonably good, that's a bit of an understatement. In fact, he was very good. Former Estonian national road champion. He's run that title twice, and earlier on this year he won his national tour, the Tour of Estonia. A big task ahead for the men in the pink and black colours, the St. George Continental team, trying to not just defend the overall race lead of Dylan Kennett, but making the most of the intermediate sprints on today's stage and trying to extend his advantage. 3 intermediate sprints today. The orange jersey Dylan Kennett sitting in around about 20th position and looking fairly comfortable as his teammates control the race. St. George Continental sitting at the front of the peloton. Opportunity for them to mark any of the moves that go off the front. Would have been nice to have been a fly on the wall today to see whether they were prepared to let the breakaways go and soak up the time bonuses at the intermediate sprints. On yesterday's stage, which we didn't have live coverage of, there was a breakaway group of 3, and they went through each of the intermediate sprints to collect all the time bonuses that were available. So there were no opportunities for the likes of Dylan Kennett or Boris Valet, the quick sprinters that are in contention for the general classification, to try and get the 3-second time bonus on offer for 1st place. 2 seconds for 2nd, 1 second for 3rd. It was just the time bonuses that were then up for grabs at the end of the stage. I wonder if it'll be a slightly different strategy today. But there's also that balancing act of figuring in that the end of the stage, the time bonuses are even bigger, with 10 seconds for the win, 6 and 4 for the minor placings. It's a tough task out in front on your own. This is the Kunbal team, Kunbao Sport Continental Cycling Team, made up entirely of Chinese riders. They've been one of the most aggressive teams so far in the race. At each opportunity to try and force a breakaway, they've certainly been in amongst the action. Notably, on stage 1, they were the first team to break away at all. See, back in the peloton, it looks relatively easy sitting in the centre of the peloton, but it's incredibly difficult to try and get off the front of the peloton at these sorts of speeds. Plenty of action early with riders desperately trying to break away, making the most of just the little lumps, even over bridges as a launching pad. No climbs of note throughout today's stage, and not much wind to speak of. Stage 3, the Tour of Taihu Lake. This is the Androni team that you can see in the red and white colours in the thick of the action. This is Matteo Vial that is rolling through to the front. He just joined the team midway through last season. 61 kilometres remaining as we pick up the action live, and life is getting a little difficult at the back of the peloton. Number 1 that you can see down near the back, that is Thomas de Gand. It looks as if he might have just been back to the team car to drop off a rain jacket, or collect a rain jacket perhaps, for the team leader, Boris Verlaine. The rider that you can see in the blue colours to the left, that's Brenton Jones. Just slipping in behind him is Georges Bouglas, the Greek sprinter, who was desperately close to a stage win in this race last year. And this is a strong little move. That's Bouglas in the white colours. Next in line is Vial. And then the St. George Continental team marking this move, but not contributing to the pace-making. Smart riding, defending the orange jersey of Dylan Kennett. This is, though, one of the most significant moves that we have seen in this group as they make their way past the hotel that forms part of the logo for the 10th anniversary for this year's race. I can tell you that that is one of the best hotels you're ever likely to stay in. We had the pleasure of being able to stay at that hotel last year, and the riders are just going through where the finish line was for the final stage 12 months ago. At the back of the peloton, this is Gal Zifan. Just in front of him, number 52, that is Giuseppe Fonzi. This is one of the big threats for the race. This is Oscar Sevilla now rolling through to the front for the Medellin team. A little flick of the elbow, looking for some more support. Oscar is well placed in the general classification. At the start of the day, he was 24 seconds behind the orange jersey of Dylan Kennett. And when he attacked on stage 1, it was the attack that, even though it didn't form a significant break, it was the one that looked as if it caught the attention of the race more so than just about anyone else. Another chance to take a look back at the hotel as Oscar Sevilla, the oldest rider in the race, continues to put the peloton under a fair bit of pressure, and you can see the scurrying and the reaction from behind. Pressure at the rear of the peloton. Giuseppe Fonzi, he's got one of the racing capes in his hand. He's taking that back to the team car. Might be best to just stick that in the back pocket for a little bit longer and hope that the race settles down before he goes back to the team car to drop that off. It's not a great situation, this, for Oscar Sevillier. Even though he's out in front, he is on his own. And as good as he is, to be trying to ride off the front of the peloton by himself is an almost impossible task. 3 intermediate sprints in the race today. 2 of them have already been contested for the all-important time bonuses, and we'll take a look at those results in just a moment. Here they are. This is the first one, and this was incredibly tight. Dylan Kennett and Boris Valet going toe-to-toe, along with Einhorn from the Israel Cycling Academy team, and it was Kennett in the middle, just ahead of Einhorn, and then it was Valet in 3rd position. So an all-important 3-second time bonus for the race leader. And Boris Valet on the left-hand side of the screen, that look across to the left, noticing that he was in 3rd position. 5 points for the green jersey as well for Kennett, but that 3-second time bonus could very well prove to be far more important than the points collected in the battle for the green jersey. The second sprint, that was contested just a few moments ago. And in the black colours in the middle of the picture, that is the Dutch sprinter, Roy Efting. He's collected the 3-second time bonus. And then once again, the consistent Kennett in orange. He has finished in 2nd position. Mikael Reim, the Estonian from Israel Cycling Academy, was 3rd. And Boris Valet has finished in 4th position, so he's missed out on any time bonuses. Oscar Sevillier also getting mixed up within that sprint. Not quite quick enough when it comes to the sprints, the Spanish climber, but showing his intent of having ambitions to try and win the race overall. And once again, in those minor placings, you could throw a blanket over them. So Efting collecting the maximum points and time bonus ahead of Kennett, and then Reim in 3rd spot. So what that does for the general classification is Kennett now leads Boris Valet, last year's winner, by 26 seconds. And then to Oscar Sevillier, the man on the screen, at the start of the stage, the gap was 24 seconds. It's now out to 29 seconds. And then in terms of his margin over 2nd place, which is Matthias Brandl, he started the day at 12 seconds ahead of him. He now moves out to 17 seconds ahead of Matthias Brandl. So Dylan Kennett continues to extend his overall race lead. I prefer today's strategy of the St. George Continental team to yesterday's strategy of letting the breakaway go. I think they're better placed to be able to eventually win this race overall. Of course, depending on what happens on the climbing on stage 5, the more opportunities they give Kennett to try and win those intermediate sprints and get more of a buffer ahead of a guy like Oscar Sevillier heading into stage 5, the better the chances of holding orange through to the finish at the end of stage 6. At the moment, it's working well as they continue to extend his overall race lead. Oscar Sevillier, who has started the day in 5th position overall, with that 25 seconds behind. So he's at 30 seconds down in the general classification based on the time bonuses so far today. "43 years of age. Some of the riders in this race just 19 years of age. He's old enough to be their father. Way back in 2001, when some of the men in this race were just in nappies, he was finishing in 2nd position in the Volta a España and in 7th place in the Tour de France. And at that point, he was known as the baby-faced hope of Spanish cycling. And at 43, he is still baby-faced. We did get a brief interview with Oscar before the stage got underway. He was happy to test out his English. He's always got a smile on his face, Oscar Sevillier. He's been racing with Colombian teams for the past almost 15 seasons now, Oscar Sevillier. So you've got the Spanish flag in one part, the Colombian flag on the other. He's been passing on a lot of his knowledge to some of the younger Colombian riders on the squads that he has been riding with. And one of them on this team, which is Harold Tejada, next season he'll be going on to ride for Astana. He's got a 2-year contract with that squad. And this little reaction causing some problems for Oscar Sevilla. His advantage been carved down to just 8 seconds. The next intermediate sprint, they've still got a little ways to go before they get there. Just on 18 kilometres before they get to the 3rd and final intermediate sprint. And you can see the blue colours sliding into 5th position. That's one of the teammates of Oscar Sevilla. Marking these moves, he won't work with any of the riders now trying to break away. In fact, it's not. That's one of the riders from the Novo Nordisk team. The colours look exactly the same as the Medellin squad, but that's Novo Nordisk. That's the team of all the riders that have type 1 diabetes, and they're looking for their opportunities to try and get themselves into the breaks. They've certainly had Charles Planet, the Frenchman, on that team, riding really well. Charles Planet, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as a 10-year-old. He's now 25. He's been with the team for the last few seasons and he's been riding pretty well. He wore the King of the Mountains jersey for a couple of days at this year's Tour of Poland, as Oscar Sevilla is not too far away from being reeled back in by the peloton. Stage 3 of the Tour of Taihu Lake, 53.3 kilometres remaining. 2 of the intermediate sprints have already been contested. Some attempts to break away, but thus far they're not proving to be successful. Just one rider has been out in front for a little while, Oscar Sevilla. Others scurrying to try and go across, but as they do so, they're effectively dragging the whole peloton with them. And Oscar's desperately trying to encourage them to work. He's got some company, he'll be happy with this, but can they force the break? This is the Me Mill team now coming through to the front. This is Erik Bergström, big Swedish time trial powerhouse that's rolling through to the front. But at the head of the peloton, the pink and black colours of St. George Continental, not panicking, just calmly rolling through. Charles Planet is the rider in the blue colours, now drifting down towards the back of that breakaway group. Oscar Sevilla once again at the front. As the peloton has just about closed it down, and in fact they have. Another attempt to try and get off the front. This time it is Jiang He who's trying to go forward. One of the youngest riders in the race at just 19 years of age. And the Sampura team just behind in the blue colours responding. They were in the thick of the action yesterday. They had Amal Zakaray in the break yesterday. He got awarded the most combative prize on yesterday's stage. David Lozano was the rider at the front of the peloton with the dark beard on, the Spanish from the Novo Nordisk team. Spaniard trying to get himself in the breakaway. Novo Nordisk clearly between Planet and Lozano, they're looking to try and get themselves into the breaks. You can see by the road surface it is idyllic. There's barely any wind as you take a look at the trees. It makes it nice to go for a bike ride, but makes it incredibly difficult to break away from such a quickly moving peloton. Novo Nordisk once again trying to move across to this breakaway group of 2. Stage 3, the Tour of Taihu Lake, just a little bit over 50 kilometres remaining on the stage. There's been multiple attempts for riders to break away, but it hasn't quite worked out for the aggressive riders just as yet. Another small contingent of riders trying desperately to move off the fronts. Importantly, 2 of the 3 intermediate sprints have already been contested, and the race leader, Dylan Kennett, he won the first one. He finished second in the second one. That has given him a total of 5 seconds worth of time bonuses, which has extended his lead in the race for the much coveted orange jersey as the overall race leader. That now moves him to a margin of 17 seconds ahead of second place Matthias Brandl, and it puts him to 26 seconds ahead of the defending champion Boris Valet, and out to 30 seconds ahead of one of the pre-race favourites, Oscar Sevilla. The rider in second position trying to move himself into the breakaway with their head twisting and turning. This is Angel Madrazo, one of the bigger names in this year's race. Madrazo, he rode the Tour of Taihu Lake last year. He rode it as part of the Delco Marseille team. He's now taking a look across his shoulder. This year, though, he had the biggest victory of his career when he won stage 4 of the Volta a España. It was a mountaintop finish, and in addition to winning the stage, he took the lead in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey, a jersey which he held for some 16 stages. Once again, the Colombian team, Medellin, on the attack. And Novo Nordisk following in second position. Nippo Vini Fantini also looking to get into the thick of the action. This is Plan A, now rolling through to the front in the dark blue colours. A nasty fall yesterday for the Nippo Vini Fantini team. And the rider that did go down yesterday was Emilio Cima. He found himself in a position harder on the right-hand barrier. He was trying to move up the inside of the Spanish sprinter, Manuel Penalver. There was nowhere really for Cima to go. It certainly wasn't the Spaniard's fault. Cima just took one risk too many. He fell, slid across the line, and on his backside went across the line, finishing in 11th position. There was nothing to be gained by the move that he was trying to make. It was all risk, no reward. And you'll look at it objectively from the comfortable side of the fence, and it's difficult to work out what was he thinking. But that's what separates sprinters from everybody else. It's just that desperation, determination to get to the line first. And it's what enables them to take all the risks that they do and to be able to eventually get some of the big victories. And Cima, at the moment, he still leads the race for the blue jersey as the best young rider, but his advantage is just 1 second ahead of Blake Quick in the race for the best young rider. This is the Beilong Bridge that they're now making their way across, and people use the word long to describe dragon in China, and the Beilong dance is known as the Chinese traditional dragon dance in Shanghai province, and the bridge was named at Beilong as it looks like a giant Chinese dragon crossing over the Taihu Binhu area. And there's a look at it from the distance, and it's almost self-explanatory once you understand the meaning of the word Beilong, and it does very much look like the famous Chinese dragon. It's an impressive piece of infrastructure. This is Lozano once again trying to get off the front, and Oscar Sevilla is the man who is responding. A clear intention, Oscar Sevilla, to be aggressive. A little bit of a tap on the backside for his compatriot Lozano. Vamos, let's go. He wants some support. This is the Minsk squad, the Belarusians now coming through to the front. As we head back into the peloton, number 122, that's Roy Efting. He was the winner of the second intermediate sprint. He hasn't quite put his nose in front in a race for a stage victory so far, but he is capable of mixing it with the best, and is certainly one to watch today. If he can get things right, he could be a surprise winner of the stage. Back down through the peloton, there's the green jersey, Benfato. The Androni team, they've had back-to-back stage victories. Number 3, that's Boris Valet, looking very relaxed sitting down at the back of the peloton. not concerned about the breakaways. The strategy of the sprinters yesterday was quite notable, as we were not doing a live broadcast but just standing on the side of the road and being able to watch the races. It did 6 laps of a 15-kilometre circuit, and the conditions were so still that at the front, the sprinters, they had a few teammates doing the pacemaking, but the sprinters themselves, such as Boris Verlet, Dylan Kennett, plus the 2 sprinters, Ben Fatto and also Bellucci from the Androni team, they sat back in the broader section of the peloton where there was a little bit more coverage, a little riskier. There's more chance of a crash back there, but it was much easier in terms of just being sucked along by the main field. And given that we're seeing the green jersey back down in a similar situation at the moment, so too Boris Verlet, it looks as if those 2 guys feel as if these attempts to break away, they're futile, they're a waste of energy. I'm going to stay back here, save everything I've got, and try and put all my eggs into the stage-winning baskets. Last year, Boris Verlet, he didn't win any of the individual stages, but he did win the race overall. He was consistent. He had a few second-place finishes, he had third-place finishes. So far this year, he's been missing out on those placings on the stages, so he doesn't get those time bonuses, which he needs to try and close the gap to the current race leader, Dylan Kennett. Another attempt to try and get off the front by the Kunbal team as they make their way across this impressive bridge. Almost at the end of it. The Bay Long Bridge, as is used to describe the dragon in Chinese. Red jersey off to the right-hand side of the peloton as the leader of the Chinese riders classification, and is Bei Lingjun. Finished 3rd in the Chinese National Championships this year in the individual time trial and put in a pretty good performance against the clock in the prologue here. Number 116, you can see at the back of the peloton in the blue colours, that is Harold Tejada, 22-year-old from Colombia, current national time trial and road race champion of Colombia in the under-23 category. This year he also managed to pick up a stage win in the Tour of Taihu, the race that is known as the race of the future. Often riders that have either won that race or performed well in that race have gone on to perform well in the Tour de France. And in fact, this year's Tour de France winner, Egan Bernal, another Colombian, 2 years ago, was the winner of the Tour of Taihu. This is Roldan, now the former Colombian national road race champion from 2011, coming through to the front. He was the rider that broke away solo on stage 1, got himself out to a maximum advantage of 37 seconds. But again, it just proved how difficult it is to be off the front, as he managed to build up such an advantage, but he surrendered eventually and realised that off the front on his own, it was impossible to hold off the might of the peloton. Stage started today in Huzhou, which is famous for its silk culture. In fact, it started the world history of breeding silkworms over 4,000 years ago, with the Huzhou silk going on to winning the gold prize in the first London World Expo back in 1851, which marked China's first appearance in the World Expo. So it really is a historical region for silk culture. Attempts to try and break away at the front of the race. Plenty of construction underway in this region, and the town in which they finish in is a beautiful town. Last night I had an opportunity to take a walk around the streets as they make their way through the Changxing bullet train station, which was officially opened up in 2013. Construction got underway in 2010, And the station makes its way between Shanghai and Hangzhou. And the station itself, it covers almost 9,000 square metres. And throughout 2018, it carried more than 125,000 people during the Chinese Lunar New Year. Just on 43 kilometres remaining, so they are 7 Ks away from the third and final intermediate sprint, the all-important time bonuses in the race for the orange jersey. And there's one of the bullet trains right on cue, making its way past on the left-hand side of the screen. Well organised. The Sapura team in the blue colours on the front. The Giant team also in amongst it. The red colours, the Androni squad. They've had back-to-back stage victories, Androni. It was Benfato on stage 1, Palucci on stage 2, and on both occasions Dylan Kennett finishing in second spot. Kennett's teammate Blake Quick knows exactly what that feels like. At the Tour of Langkawi earlier on this year, Blake Quick had 2 second-place finishes, and one was behind Benfato, the other one was behind Palucci. But he is one of the rising stars of world cycling, Blake Quick, just 19 years of age. He's been doing a good job as the key lead-out man for Dylan Kennett throughout the sprint finishes so far in this year's race. David Lozano once again on the front for the Novo Nordisk team. And there's Oscar Sevillier with the wide helmet towards the front, showing plenty of ambition throughout this year's race. Once the break gets slightly established, there's a look of pessimism amongst the riders that are getting themselves off the front. Schnurko is the rider in second position, the Belarusian rider on the Nangsha team. Oscar Sevillier again, number 111 in the blue colours of the Medellin team. Number 73, Lozano, trying to respond, but not quite with the legs to get across. And given that we're just on 4 kilometres away from the intermediate sprint, this could be the long-range move from Oscar Sevillier to try and pick up the 3-second time bonus. He started the day at 25 seconds behind, but given the intermediate sprints that have been contested so far, he now finds himself at 30 seconds down in the general classification. It's a tough way to try and pick up a 3-second time bonus, but it just may well be what is required. And in fact, Oscar Sevillier has now slipped to 6th position overall, just behind Miguel Rang, who has collected 1 time bonus so far on today's stage to move himself up a position in the overall standings. Arua is doing the chasing from behind. Sevillier is about to be caught. Stage 3, the Tour of Taihu Lake. The peloton is quickly making its way towards the third and final intermediate sprint, where 3 seconds is up for grabs for the first across the line, 2 seconds for second place, 1 second for third. And the man in second position now to the left-hand side of the road, that is Oscar Sevillier, started the day in 5th place overall. With the time bonuses that have been collected thus far, he's 30 seconds away from the orange jersey. But this is part of his long-range bid to eventually take the orange jersey on the final day of racing. Sitting at the back of the peloton, number 46, this is Dennis Van Winden from the Israel Cycling Academy team, having a chat to his compatriot Wesley Creeder from Wanty Group Goubert. Big step up next season for Israel Cycling Academy. They're currently what is known as a pro-continental team, which is the second division of world cycling. So they're dependent on wildcard invitations to the biggest races in the world, such as the Giro d'Italia, which they started last year. But next year, they move into the World Tour, Division 1, and they are an automatic entry into the Tours of Italy, France, Spain, and all the big one-day races. Plenty of aggression at the front as they quickly approach the intermediate sprint points. Number 45, that's Daniel Turik. And 115, you can see, a lawyer. Neither of them particularly close to the orange jersey at this point, although Turik is just 30 seconds behind. Well, they're both sitting at 30 seconds behind. Perhaps Arroyo is a little bit more threatening. He's a stronger climber of the two, plus he's a reasonably good sprinter, so he might be able to pick up the time bonus that they're approaching pretty quickly. And what's the reaction that's coming from the main peloton? Has this caught the attention of the St. George Continental team? It's difficult to keep a track on all the riders that are going off the front, given how quickly the moves are coming. What is certain that throughout today's stage, the Colombian team, Medellin, have been the most aggressive. This is Turik at the back, number 45. Rider from the Czech Republic, whose biggest result so far in his career has been a stage victory in the Tour of Azerbaijan. He did ride this race last year as part of the Israel Cycling Academy team. Quick check across the shoulder to see what sort of progress has been made by the peloton. And the expression on the face of Robazin Arroyo is telling the story of the pressure that is being applied at the front for these two, just trying to get themselves a little bit of breathing space from the main peloton. And they have opened up a handy lead. Into Shangzi, into the CBD itself, plenty of office buildings that you can see in the background, the malls as well, residential areas, lots of schools, banking area, just next to the bullet train that we saw a few moments ago. You can see the red kite off to the left-hand side of the screen. They've just made the left-hand turn and they're about to head through the finish line for the first time, where they'll then do 2 laps around this closing circuit. So for the sprinters, this is an ideal dress rehearsal to take a look at what will confront them at the end of the stage. Jinju Road for the third of the intermediate sprints. Euler at the front. He's flicking the elbow. He's not overly concerned about collecting the time bonus. He's more interested in working with Turik and maintaining their advantage off the front. But the rider from the Czech Republic, Turik, he wants to sprint. He did not recognize the flick of the elbow. He wasn't aware of the fact that he could have easily just rolled over the top. He didn't need to sprint at all. He could have just kept working with the Colombian as they were trying to break away, collected the time bonus, and saved a little bit of energy. The Colombian is thinking more long-term, less interested in the time bonus and more interested in trying to hold off the peloton and win the stage. Meanwhile, the peloton make their way through, led by the St. George Continental team. No time bonuses this time for Dylan Kennett, but no great concern either. Chance to take a look back at some of the Changxing government buildings. The building of the Changxing government is in 4 parts, designed of modern glass. As we look at the breakaway with one rider trying to come across. This is Mohammed Abdrazim, who's trying to get across, and he's about to make contact. As he does, time to take a breather, get a little bit of water and food on board, let the other guys in the break know, I need to recuperate, then I can work with you. And they're aware of it. So confirmation of Turik collecting the maximum points through that intermediate sprint. Razim, he was in 3rd position as he broke away from the peloton to bridge across to the leaders. Just eavesdropping on a little bit of conversation. It hasn't taken long at all for 175 Razim to work with these two. He wrote a good opening prologue, Razim. He started the day at 37 seconds down in the general classification. Turik now pushing through. 26-year-old from the Czech Republic. Considers himself the head of this breakaway group. He's not the most experienced. The Colombian in this move, Oloya, he is the most experienced, certainly in terms of years. He's 31 years of age. Turik is 26 years of age, so a little bit younger. And Razim at the back of the group, he's just 21, so he's the younger rider in the group. One of the many Malaysians in this year's race, and Malaysian cycling has been taking some big strides forward on the road in the last couple of seasons. For a long time they've been very good on the track. They're now starting to make some good progress on the road. Israel Cycling Academy with 3 riders sitting there towards the front of the peloton. They've got 1 man in the breakaway, and the rest of them there, they're looking just to try and disrupt the chase in the hope that the breakaway can survive. This is Tom Hubbard, who sits on the front, setting the tempo for the St. George Continental team. Workhorses for this squad. Yesterday, as we stood on the side of the road and watched the race go through, it was generally Tom Hubbard for a long portion of the race who was at the front doing the pacemaking. And these 3 are really moving, and they're working well together. It's a chance to take another look back at the Chengxing government buildings. As you can see, separated in 4 parts, really modern glass design. A human-made river surrounds the building as well, and at the base, just to put the mind at ease before the workers make their way into the building, there's a fountain that is a musical fountain as you make your way in towards the building. And that square that you can see there, last night at around about 8 o'clock, they had a big festival of dance. They were dancing to Billie Jean, mind you, by Michael Jackson. And there were people of all ages out there dancing together, and it was really well coordinated. And it is a beautiful spot. And that you can see, the water isn't working at the moment from the fountain, but that is a musical fountain. And it is very peaceful when it is in use. And you can see by the size of the gear ratio that they're using on the big chainring, which is probably a 53-tooth chainring at the front, and riding around about a 14-tooth, 15-tooth sprocket at the back of the bike. So that generally goes to around about a speed of 45 kilometres per hour for these 3 riders off the front. And they've now built themselves up an advantage of 50 seconds, which puts number 45, Daniel Turik, into the virtual race lead. Across the bridge, our 3 leaders. It is Turik at the front. Oroya now rolls through in 1st position, number 115. And it is Razim in the blue colours of Sapura. Medellin team, the Colombian team, they've been super aggressive throughout the stage. They've tried multiple times with Oscar Sevilla to try and break away. This is Mohamed Sa Amin Razim. Yesterday, the Sapura team, they were in the breakaway with Amila Zakarai, and he was awarded the most combative prize on the stage. Euler, who now sits in second position. He started the day at 30 seconds behind Dylan Kennett. He now finds himself at 33 seconds behind, given the way the time bonuses have gone so far throughout the stage. Number 45, Turik, he's at 32 seconds down in the general classification, but then out on the road they're 51 seconds in front, so the virtual race lead, but there's still a long way to go on this stage, and it's still Tom Hubbard who's at the front for the St. George Continental team, so there's no panic back in the peloton about the current situation with 3 riders off the fronts. What this is allowing the Wanty Group Goubert team to do, though, the team of Boris Valet, it's allowing them just to sit back in the peloton and watch the St. George team do more of the chasing. The hope is for Wanty Group Goubert that it exhausts the St. George Continental team, leaves them with less resources to be able to do the lead out for Dylan Kennett at the end of the stage. You can just see in the red and white colours sitting around about 4th or 5th position. They're the colours of the Androni Giocattoli team. That's the team of Benfato and Palucci. They've won stages 1 and stage 2, and you would expect that Androni will contribute to the chasing. This is the biggest advantage we've seen of any breakaway throughout this year's race. It's the first time we've seen a break get out to an advantage of more than 1 minute. And it's taken until the back end of stage 3. That tells the story as to how quick the racing has been. Turik continues to talk in the breakaway, encouraging his breakaway companions. Euler here in second position. Stage 3, the Tour of Taihu Lake, there was a breakaway group of 3, out to an advantage of 57 seconds. It's starting to come down ever so slightly. At one point, it got out to an advantage of 1 minute and 6 seconds, but it has very much caught the attention of the peloton. The good news for the St. George Continental team is that there are other squads that fear that breakaway group, and they also want to try and reel it back in to set up for a big bunch sprint finish. Amongst them, the team in the red and white colours, the Italian squad, Androni Giocattoli, they're looking to make it 3 in a row. This is Matteo Sprefico, who now rolls through to the front to do some of the chasing. He's the known climber from this team. Today's stage doesn't suit him, so he's doing the work for their 2 sprinters. Last year, Sprefico, he was the winner of the Vuelta Venezuela. He wears the unlucky number 13, as some like to refer to it as. This is Matthias Brandl now, who starts the day in second place overall. He's just indicating to our motorbike, move a little bit further forward. That's providing a drafting advantage for the chasers. And I've got a teammate in the breakaway. And here he is, Daniel Turik, number 45 from the Israel Cycling Academy. Turik started the day in 13th place overall. His teammate, Matthias Brandl, started the day in 2nd place overall. But so far, throughout the intermediate sprints, Matthias Brandl hasn't really contested them. He's noted as a great individual time trialist, former world hour record holder, but he hasn't been able to mix it with the fast sprinters in this race and continues to slip further and further behind, which with each of the intermediate sprints. The time bonuses go into the likes of Kennett and Boris Valet. This is Turik riding this race for the 2nd time. Take a look down upon the numbers. A little bit over 40 kilometres per hour at this point for the breakaway group of 3. Big step up for the Israel Cycling Academy next year. Just missing the apex on that corner, Razim. has to spend a little bit more energy to get back into the slipstream. The other two unaware of the fact that he lost a couple of lengths through that corner, so they're not going to give him any free rides sitting at the back. Sprints back onto the wheel, takes a little bit of a breather, and then in a moment he'll see the flick of the elbow in front, and he's called through to put his nose into the wind. Under these sorts of conditions, sitting behind somebody, you save around about 30%. That's the general rule of thumb. You just saw once again, number 45, Daniel Turek, on this occasion, speaking to the Colombian, Arroyo. He is talking to everybody. He is talking up the breakaway. He's trying to maintain their motivation as much as he possibly can. And then he does the shorter turn and paces the three of them at the front. See how tightly he's sitting the wheel of Razim, the rider in front of him. He does have a slight disadvantage in this breakaway, Turek, in that he's much taller than the other two, so they're getting more of a drafting advantage sitting behind him than he is sitting behind them. This aerial shot tells the story of how serious the peloton are taking this breakaway group. They're strung out in single file, the advantage back down to 46 seconds. 3 intermediate sprints having been contested so far. Dylan Kennett was the winner of the first one. It was then Roy Efting, the winner of the second one. Breakaway was off the front for the third one, and it was Daniel Turek who went across the line in first position on that occasion. Given the current situation in the race, in the battle for the general classification, if it does come down to a bump sprint finish, even if Dylan Kennett was to finish outside of the placings for the time bonuses, he would still maintain his overall race lead. Heading back past the bullet train station once again, which opened up in 2013. When they first came by here on today's stage, we had the perfect timing with one of the trains actually going past. It makes the commute from this town to just about anywhere in the country nice and simple and really quick. Here he is, the race leader. 3 stages or 3 days of racing down so far. The prologue plus stage 1 and 2, and thus far Dylan Kennett has certainly been the most consistent in the race. Second in the prologue, second on stage 1, second on stage 2. Stage 1 was desperately close. It was a photo finish between he and Marco Benfatto, and it was by the narrowest of margins that the Italian got the nod. He was having a chat there to Michael Vink, one of his teammates from the St. George Continental team. Vink started the day in 3rd place overall. It was 20 seconds the gap between those two at the start of the stage. It's now down to 25 seconds, or out to 25 seconds, but Vink is still in 3rd position in the general classification. This is a look at the bullet train station from another angle. The whole vicinity for that train station covers almost 9,000 square metres. Tom Hubbard it is now who is at the front setting the tempo. Sports director for this squad, Brett Dutton, former Olympic Games bronze medalist. A medal that he picked up way back in 1988 in Seoul when he was part of the Australian squad for the team's pursuits. And the Giant team also amongst the thick of the action, doing a fair bit of the chasing. They have Chen on their squad. Chen Zwen, who has been sprinting pretty well. He could provide a little bit of a surprise in the stage finish today. He's found himself just outside the top 10 so far. He was 13th on stage 1. He's hoping for a little bit better today, but it's good to see this team not intimidated by the bigger squads in the race and in amongst the chase. No doubt Androni and St. George are even happier to see them at the front and assisting with the chase. back with the breakaway group of 3. This is Daniel Turik. Big powerful rider from the Czech Republic. Aloya and Razim, it is who's at the back. Stage 3, the Tour of Taihu Lake, breakaway group of 3. They're slowly having their advantage reduced. This at the front for the Androni Giocattoli team is Matteo Sprefico. He's doing the chasing. He's the best known climber on this team. But this is the team that throughout its history has had a great reputation with sprinters. And Sprefico is just indicating, let's all work together, keep it nice and smooth, and we'll be able to reel that break back in. St. George Continental, they've had some great success in this race over the last couple of years. Last year they had 2 victories, one in the prologue, another one on stage 3. Both of them coming courtesy of Kennett, who currently wears the orange leader's jersey. He's been second on all 3 stages so far this year. The blue jersey, this is Emerio Cima. He was 11th on the stage yesterday while skidding across the line on his hip. He tried to squeeze up the inside, a gap that just wasn't there. A little touch of wheels and the Italian went down heavily. By all reports, it got a little bit heated back down at the team tents as he was trying to blame one of the Spaniards from the Burgos BH team. But the video replay revealed that it was Cima just being a little bit ambitious with the gap that he was trying to go through. I do understand how in the heat of the moment you can perhaps think that it might have been somebody else's fault, but I'm sure that in the cool light of day, if Cima took a look at the video, he'd recognise that maybe the gap that he was looking for really wasn't available. The good news was that he picked himself back up fairly quickly. He was back onto the bike to ride down to the team tent, got changed, and then went up to the podium presentation to collect the blue jersey as the leader of the best young rider classification. It's a tight race in that competition. He currently leads by 1 second ahead of Blake Quick, and at 7 seconds his gap to Itamar Einhorn. Einhorn incidentally finished second in the first intermediate sprint today to pick up a 2-second time bonus. Our 3-man breakaway, if you have just joined us on stage 3 of the Tour of Taihu Lake. This is Turik, number 45, started the day in 13th place overall. 1:15 rolling through to the front. Aloya, Colombian climber, but a pretty good sprinter as well. And this is Razim from Malaysia at the back, riding for the Sapura team. He was the last one to come across. He made contact, took around about a 30-second break. Turik then had a word to him, and they've all been working well together ever since. The biggest margin that they've had is the biggest lead that we've seen throughout this year's race. And at one point, they got themselves out to an advantage of 1 minute and 6 seconds. In terms of the general classification, Turik is the virtual race leader. But with a 49 second advantage, he won't be the virtual race leader for too much longer, provided the chase in the peloton continues in its current pattern. He started the day 30 seconds down in 13th spot overall. The Sapura team, they've been impressive so far. They've looked for lots of the breakaways. Yesterday, they had Zakaria in the breakaway. He got the most combative prize. This is Kennett's. Last year, before the race, or before the road stages, after his strong performance in the prologue, having a chat to him about what would be to come within the race, he didn't speak of himself as much of a sprinter. He certainly didn't speak himself up as much of a sprinter. The race revealed differently. The sprint finish, in which he won on stage 3, once he got a little bit of clean air, his horsepower was enormous, and it certainly caught the attention of a lot of the other teams within the race. And he's been sprinting very well so far in this race, with 2 second-place finishes in the sprint so far, and also with the intermediate sprints picking up the points and the time bonuses to extend his overall race lead. Mr. Calm on the team at the front of the peloton now. That's Tom Hubbard that's doing the pacemaking. And the privilege last year of spending a bit of time in the commentary box with Tom Hubbard. Unfortunately for him, it was because of a crash. He had a little bit of a gear slip at the start of one of the stages. It bucked him off the bike, and as a result, he fell pretty heavily. It was a nasty looking fall in that he went over the top of the handlebars, that big crashing impact, and he was unable to start the following stage. Again, Turek, number 45, doing all the talking. About to make their way through the finish line once again. They've been through here once already for the intermediate sprints. No intermediate sprint on this occasion, but the bell is about to sound to indicate 1 lap remaining. Euler is the rider that leads them through. Razim in second position. Turek is at the back. Fairly subtle sounding bell, but the riders certainly know when it's just 1 lap to go. Sprefico is the man who is on the front for Androni Giocattoli, and they're gradually reeling that breakaway back in. They're taking today's breakaway of 3 a lot more seriously than yesterday's 3-man breakaway. 2 really strong squads represented in the breakaway today. Israel Cycling Academy and Medellin. There's a look back at the government building once again, and down in front you can see some of the festivities getting underway. There was plenty of dancing there in that little square in front of the government buildings last night. And it was a treat to be able to finish dinner, take a walk down there and across this man-made river as well that surrounds the government buildings. It's a nice, peaceful setting. They had some activities for the kids to make the most of, a little fair there with a few rides to be able to go on. It was a nice atmosphere here last night ahead of stage 3 of the Tour of Taihu Lake. And the workmanship on the paving is really very impressive. Three-man breakaway now down to a lead of just 32 seconds. The riders back at the head of the peloton, they'll know the reputation of the men out in front today a little bit more than what they will have of the riders in the breakaway yesterday. And that has created a little more urgency within the chase. Israel Cycling Academy team, they got themselves lined up towards the front. The rider with the white helmet on the grey bike, that is Oscar Sevilla. He's been pretty active throughout the stage today, looking for the breakaways. Wanty Group Goubert with the fluoro helmets on, just across the other side of Oscar Sevilla. The last rider in line from that team, he's got a little black casing over the top of his helmet. That's Boris Valet. He's the man who won the race overall last year. That black casing is just for a little extra aerodynamics. Still Sprefico at the front for the Androni Giocattoli team, looking for a hat-trick of victories. St. George Continental continuing to do the chasing. This is the Imperial Palace of Emperor Chen Wu, which we now get a chance to enjoy. The Chen dynasty was around 557 AD, and people now describe him as a talented, brave and wise emperor of that era. This palace was significantly repaired in 2010, and it's gone on to become one of the most popular scenic spots in Changxin, and we can certainly see why. Just on 15 kilometres remain, it's down to 24 seconds. So we can no longer talk about Daniel Turek at number 45 as being the virtual race leader. Often in these scenarios with a breakaway group of 3, the teams of the sprinters will be thinking, let's just leave them out there until perhaps 5Ks to go. With this quality, they want to catch them sooner. See the little bit of the rocking of the hips of Daniel Turek as he swings off from the front. Rare occasion that he rolls through to the back without having a conversation with one of his breakaway companions. But the rocking of the hips is always a key indicator of how heavy the pressure is on at the front. This is close to a threshold effort for the men in the breakaway. The Medellin team, the leading Colombian team, riding a few races in China this year. If you missed the start of the program, we got the opportunity to catch up with Oscar Sevilla, who has ridden a couple of races in China throughout this season, and he has been enjoying what has been a pretty good year. He was second in the Tour of Taihu Lake. He also raced in America this season with a second place finish in the Tour of the Gila. He won the Vuelta Chile and was third in the Vuelta San Juan in Argentina. So this team is well travelled. Across the bridge for the final time. And that little rise, it doesn't look like much, but it will knock a fraction of the momentum out of that breakaway group. Their advantage now down to just 23 seconds. At one point, they found themselves out to 1 minute and 6 seconds. The biggest lead we've seen at any point throughout this year's race. The peloton now onto the bridge, still led by the St. George Continental team. And sitting at the back of the peloton, plenty of the riders from the Medellin team, the Colombian squad, with one rider in the breakaway. They don't have any real noted sprinters, so they have been looking for the moves. The Vini Fantini team trying to move up the outside. They're now looking to negotiate and get themselves in a good position. They don't want to contribute to the chasing, that they want to be in the right spot to get ready to lead out either Imerio Chima or Damiano Chima for the stage win. I wonder how Imerio has recovered from yesterday's crash. No doubt he didn't want to reveal too much before the start of the stage to give some insights into his rivals as to any potential weaknesses. Regardless of how heavy a fall is, even if it looks insignificant, it has to have an impact. Androni Giocattoli now with 2 riders at the front contributing to the chasing. Wonder whether it will be Benefato or Paolucci who is the man to do the job for them today. Down to the closing stages of stage 3 of the Tour of Taihu Lake as they make their way through to Tianjin, a city that is just around about 2 hours from Shanghai with a population of a little over 600,000. It's renowned as a land of fish and rice and a home of silk. And it was at the start village where silkworm culture was born. The breakaway group, Razim, has now lost contact. The young Malaysian rider from the Sapporo team, he was the last to join the breakaway. He's just run out of a little bit of steam. Nonetheless, this is an important stepping stone in his career. He's done well to keep company with the quality of these 2 riders out in front. Oloya at the front. Now Turek it is who rolls through. They both started the stage at 30 seconds behind. Turek it was who won the 3rd intermediate sprint, so he now moves 1 second ahead of his breakaway companion. But he still finds himself well off the pace of the orange jersey. Given the 2 intermediate sprints that we contested earlier in the stage, 3 intermediate sprints today, Dylan Kennett now leads Turik by 33 seconds. And he has opened up his advantage on his nearest rival in the general classification, Matthias Brandl, from 12 seconds out to 17 seconds. Tom Hubbard finally showing us his teeth, a little bit of a grimace. The green jersey, this is Benfato. He's got that green jersey on loan actually from Dylan Kennett. Benfato sits in second position. Kennett leads on 27 points. Marco Benfato is on 20 points, and then Boris Valet in third position on 19 points. But Kennett has the responsibility of wearing the orange jersey as the overall race leader. But just on 10 kilometres to go, and the Italian sprinter, the winner of stage 1, is still sitting effectively at the rear of the peloton. He is not concerned at all about the breakaway. His teammates at the front are doing the chasing, and Marco has all the confidence in the world that when he chooses to, he'll be able to comfortably move to the front, get himself amongst the other sprinters, and contest for stage honours either for himself or to assist in the lead out for yesterday's winner, Matteo Bellucci, also from that team, Androni Giacottoli. And here is that team at the front. So they have 2 of their riders doing the chasing, 2 of them potentially to win the stage, and their young stagiaire rider, Nicola Venturuti, to do the lead out for them. And now you can see the fight for position is starting to emerge. The purple colours of the Burgos BH team, they're moving to the front for the young Spanish sprinter. Penalver is the man that they're working for. He's got plenty of experience in China. So far this year, Penalver has ridden 4 races in China. He's the best sprinter from that team. He'll be the last in line from the squad, and he was almost taken down in the crash yesterday. That just saw Emerio Chima hit the deck and slide across the finish line on his hip in 11th position. Turik still out in front, not surrendering. Little flick of the elbow. This has been working out okay for the rest of his teammates though from the Israel Cycling Academy. This has led the sprinters, Mikael Rein and Itamar Einhorn, just sit back in the peloton, watch other teams do the chasing, and then they'll throw their hat in the mix for the sprint finish. It was Rein from that team who finished in 3rd position on yesterday's stage. And Einhorn from that squad was in 8th position on stage 1. So they've been pretty consistent, and they managed to collect the stage victory with the prologue on the opening day with Matthias Brandl, who still holds on to 2nd place in the general classification. Down at the back of the peloton, looking for number 122. There he is, Roy Efting. He won the 2nd intermediate sprint. And again, it's a little surprising to see him so far back in the race. Just like the green jersey, Benfato, who was at the back, it doesn't look as if he's there any longer. Perhaps he has started his move to eventually work his way towards the front. The fluoro colours that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. This is the Nero Sottoli team for Luca Baccioni, trying to get their Italian sprinter into a good position. The orange jersey, Dylan Kennett, sitting behind Blake Quick. That's Blake Quick that is in the black helmet, the big Queenslander, the 19-year-old, who is a really quick sprinter in his own right. But he has the responsibility in this right of sacrificing his chances for a stage victory to put Kennett in a position to perhaps win the stage. That's the number 1 objective. And if not, get 2nd or 3rd and the all-important time bonus to extend his overall race lead. Our 2 riders off the fronts, now down to just an 8-second advantage, as it's the experienced Italian squad, Androni Giacottoli, doing all the chasing and closing it down, along with the St. George Continental team. And the rest of the teams of the sprinters, they're just hovering from about 10th position back. There's the red jersey on the left of the peloton, number 144, Bai Linjun. He's the leader of the Chinese rider classification. But sitting behind him is Georgios Bouglas, the former Greek national champion. In fact, just a little in front of him is Bouglas, the former Greek national champion. He's the best sprinter from that team in the white colours, and he'll be one to watch. And the sprinters, they make their way under the bullet train station as we look to see who can be the fastest on stage 3. No white flag out in front for the breakaway. They know that they're going to be caught, but they want to somehow defy the odds. Down to just 6 seconds. They can almost feel the peloton breathing down the neck. The international signal from Zurich, the flick of the elbow, indicating it's time for you to come to the front. I want to get into the slipstream. And you can see back in the peloton that jostling for position, they don't want to be on the front, they want to be near the front, but conserving a little more energy than the riders from St. George and the Androni team have been doing so much work up to this point. Searching for the black helmets of Boris Valle. He's just dropped out of the picture at the bottom right-hand corner, but he's getting himself in a pretty good position. Chima is up towards the front as well in the blue jersey. There's the orange of the overall race leader, and sitting directly behind him is yesterday's stage winner, Matteo Paolucci. So Paolucci, who previously was a part of Peter Sagan's team at the Bora Hansgrohe squad, is paying full respect to the current race leader, Dylan Kennett. He wants Kennett's wheel. He thinks that's the best position for him to be in to try and make it 2 stage wins in a row. And it would be 3 for the Androni team, as it was Benfato who was the winner on stage 1. And the Israel Cycling Academy team, you can see them in the blue and white colours. They have Turik here in the breakaway. They've been sitting patiently with their teammate out in front, who now shakes hands with Aloya. They tried. It wasn't for lack of wanting. There was plenty of effort out in front. An acknowledgement of the difficulty of the challenge. The breakaway is all over. Rest assured that particularly the team in the blue colours, Medellin, the Colombian team, they will continue to attack throughout this year's race. Number 164, that is Blake Quick. He has the job of doing the lead out for the race leader, Dylan Kennett. Now the fight for position commences in earnest. And you can see the swooping around the outside. And it's good to see the Novo Nordisk team in the blue colours on the right-hand side of the road, trying to put themselves into a strong position. They had the Italian sprinter from that team, Andrea Perron, finish in 12th position yesterday. And you would assume that he's their man for the sprint this afternoon. The purple colours, Burgos BH. They're lining up for their sprinter. Penalver is the man that they're working for. And Kennett now being surrounded, I should say, by the sprinters from the Androni team. Paolucci is glued to his wheel. Bailey-Jean in the red jersey moves himself up in a good position, as Bouglas has got himself behind his big Belarusian lead-out man, Alexei Shnurko. Shnurko is the first of the riders in the white colours. Bouglas is just behind him. And now the tempo is starting to rise with that battle coming around the outside. It's a wide road. If you've got the horsepower, it's relatively easy, in inverted commas, to improve your position. No signs of Brenton Jones at this point. Filosi is there for the Delco Marseille team. He's the rider in the light blue and white colours with the pink socks on the right-hand side of the peloton. Filosi himself is a pretty good sprinter. The blue jersey, the leader of the best young rider classification. That is Emerio Chima. He sits behind his brother, Damiano. And so it looks like Emerio has said, don't worry about yesterday's crash. I'm back, ready for action. I can go again. Still St. George at the front, looking to convert 3 second-place finishes for Kennett into a stage victory. The Israel Cycling Academy team now moving up the left-hand side of the road. They've been close. Yesterday it was Mikael Ram that finished in 3rd spot. the rider from Estonia, hoping to get the stage honours this time around. And the Nero Sotoli team still a fair way back. The left-hand side of the road now, it's Delco Marseille. They are bringing Jones up towards the front. As Burgos BH, being led by Jetsu Bowl, they're moving around. So it's that classic cliche, if you're not moving forward, you are going backwards. And Delco Marseille, we haven't seen them all day long, and right on cue, with 3 kilometres remaining, they move to the front. There's the big figure of Jones. He's in last position for that team with the white helmet on, the light blue colours. They're being led by Remy Rocher with the orange shoes. It's Arroyo that's in second spot for them, the rider from Rwanda. The purple colours with Madrazo for Burgos BH. They're looking for Penalver, who was close to the fall on yesterday's stage. No one team has got control of this peloton. And Kennett, the orange jersey, he's just slipped out of the picture down on the bottom right-hand corner. He's run out of teammates at this point, but he's smartly moved across to the wheels of the Israel Cycling Academy team. That's a good decision. And now the big colours, the Minx team, the team from Belarus, is now at the back of the peloton. These two riders that you see, Hubbard 162, and that's Zenovic number 166. They're the two riders that did all the pace making early to catch the breakaway. Their job has been done. It's up to others to support Kennett, and perhaps there's been a mechanical problem for Blake Quick. As now at the front, this is Matthias Brandl, who is doing the lead out. This is the rider who sits in second place in the general classification, but he's not worried about his own chances today. He's doing the lead out for his two team sprinters, Einhorn and Raem. 1,500 metres to go. Novo Nordisk trying to do the lead outs, getting themselves up towards the front. Perron is the sprinter that they're working for, but it's the winner of the opening prologue that starts to stretch them out. This is the rider that set the world hour record a few years ago, covering almost 52 kilometres within the hour. Around the final corner, just on 1 kilometre remaining. And those at the back of the peloton, they just tune into race radio to hear the results. Kennett finds himself still being followed by Palucci, yesterday's stage winner, as Blake Quick has made his way to the front once again, and right on cue, he appears directly in front of the orange jersey of Kennett, so he's got himself in a good spot. But it's the Israel Cycling Academy team that have got the ideal lead-out train looking for Raim and Einhorn as the other sprinters make their move from behind. It's open up time. Dennis Van Wyndham is the first to go. It's full speed ahead as Kennett tries to make his way through the traffic, but he gets just a little bit boxed in. It is Penalvar in the purple colours. It's Boris Valet squeezing through the middle. Last year's winner Valet. Kennett blasts through on the right-hand side. It will come to a photo. Kennett has his arms up, and the photo will go on the mantelpiece. He converts 3 second-place finishes into a win. And a shake of the head in disbelief. He emerged from nowhere. He got caught in traffic, powered his way through on the right-hand side. He's now looking for his teammates. How indeed. That is close. A blanket over the top 5. An extraordinary sprint finish from Kennett, just able to find a little bit of clean air at the end. Rugugu in the black colours in the middle. Eftin in the black off to the right. Impossible to separate second, third, fourth and fifth. Perhaps Einhorn in second position. Look at the aerial shot. Kennett coming from a long way back by comparison to the others. And Einhorn in second. We'll wait for official confirmation. That was super close, but Kennett taking the win. Raim in second position, Rugugu in third place. Kennett celebrates. Government buildings at the stage finish have just witnessed an incredibly tight sprint finish. It was anyone's guess at 50 metres to go, and it was so desperately tight. Dylan Kennett taking the win ahead of Mikael Riam. It was Yusuf Rugugu in third position, Roy Efting in fourth spot, Boris Valle in fifth, Matteo Paolucci in sixth position, Luca Paccioni in seventh place. It was then Penalvar in eighth, Brenton Jones in ninth, and Burgos rounding out the top 10. The man-made river that surrounds this building makes for a nice tranquil setting. Nice down. There was a good festival here last night. Plenty of action happening. Unfortunately, just rained a little bit towards the end of the festival, but they managed to get their dancing. And it will be Dylan Kennett who will be dancing the loudest tonight. It was a photo finish that he missed out on stage one. It's a photo finish that he gets the win on stage 3. And the Israel Cycling Academy team, they played their cards really well today. They didn't make any mistakes. They had one rider in the breakaway that let the rest of the team save their energy for the lead out. And Mikael Riam, he had his nose in front just until around at the last perhaps 25 metres, maybe even less than that, when Kennett just slipped through on the right-hand side and blasted his way to stage honours. So another 10-second time bonus. That is starting to establish a really good buffer in the general classification throughout today's stage, with a win and a second place at the intermediate sprints, plus the stage itself. He's collected 15 seconds worth of time bonuses. So in terms of his battle with some of the climbers in this race, most notably Oscar Sevilla, who was really aggressive at the start of the stage, that now gives the Kiwi a 40-second buffer on Oscar Sevilla. The Burgos BH team now debrief on what happened in the final dramatic kilometre. That's Jetsa Bolt with the helmet off. Number 22, that is their sprinter. Penalvar. And he was close. Penalvar today finished in 8th position. Stage 3, the Tour of Taihu Lake, and finishing in front of the government buildings in Changxing. And it was a dramatic stage finish with Dylan Kennett taking the win. A rider that's had 3 second place finishes, no doubt will be relieved and overjoyed to get the win. He was so close on stage 1 in that photo finish behind Marco Benfato. Today it is a win ahead of Mikael Riam and then Yusuf Rugugu in 3rd position. The all-important time bonus will extend his lead in the race for the orange jersey. Let's take a look at how it all happened. It was a frantic final kilometre. No one team really had complete control of the race. The team that was best positioned was the team in the blue and white colours of the Israel Cycling Academy team, as they got themselves at the front with number 42. That's Matthias Brandl, who won the opening prologue. And through that last corner, they still had 3 riders to do the lead out for their sprinter, Raim. And then the orange jersey at this point, Dylan Kennett, still was in a fairly good position. Blake Quick came up alongside him in the pink colours. Still looking good here, as Israel Cycling Academy in command, stringing things out. It all looked fairly rudimentary at this stage, as if they were going to have a nice, clean sprint and they were going to be able to take care of business. But then the mad rush came from behind. Blake Quick started to make the move, and then it was the Medellin team that was moving around the outside. Boris Valle got himself into the mix as well from Monte Group Goubert. Roy Efting moved forward. Palucci got into the mix, and at this point, Kennett almost had to hit the brakes. He stopped pedaling, he moved to the right-hand side, found a clean bit of road, and then through to the line at the last moments, and managed to get the win. And even he himself was a little bit, how did that happen? As he went across the line. In slightly stronger language than that. He had to make a big move to get through that gap that was there. This gives you a taste, even in slow-mo, the sort of speed and the desperate battle for the finish line. How much quicker Kennett was moving than the others. He wasn't in front until perhaps 2 meters to go, maybe even less, but he was coming at a great rate of knots. The 4 government buildings designed of glass, very modern building with a man-made river that surrounds the building. Beautiful music fountain that is in front of the building as well. The St. George team, they've done well today, not just defending the overall race lead, but extending the race lead. The Giant team, they were pretty active throughout today's stage. They did a fair bit of the work in the hope that they could set things up for their sprinter, Chen Win. He's been sprinting pretty well. Let's now get down to the stage winner, Dylan Kennett.
Meant a whole lot to you.
Yeah, no, it was awesome to pull off the win. It was getting a little bit frustrating getting second every day, but and the boys rode the front literally from the gun, to that finish. So no, it's awesome to get the win for them. And it's I at the 200 to go, or even 100 to go, I was like 15th. I didn't know how I'd come through, and I couldn't believe it. I looked across when I had won. I was just amazed. So you don't win too many like that.
I mean, sprinting is a sport of patience, isn't it? You've got to time everything to perfection. How proud of you of your effort today? Just take us through, that final sprint.
Yeah, well, we were well positioned into the 5K, and then we kind of got swamped. And old Brandel was on the front of the Israel Academy team, and I thought, there's the team to be on. Like, for sure, they're going to be in the top team around that last corner. They had the whole team lined up. Very impressive teamwork by them. And then young Blake, my lead-up man, lost me about 2K, and then I knew that he'd come looking for me in that final straight, and he did. And he actually didn't have the legs, but he had the ticker to try and get me as close as he could. And then it actually almost ended up helping me because I had 10 metres back and had to run they were stacked up like a blooming horse race. And I come through along the fence, and so yeah, I actually said to them afterwards, I said, see, patience paid off there. So yeah, it's amazing to get a win like that.
And there's a bit of a secret to your win today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I put the Booties on, the defeat Booties from Donna, Brett Dutton's wife, and she supports the team, and the boys were taking the mick out of me for that, and yeah, well, it paid off. I told them I might get the stage one of them on today, and I did.
Had an incredibly consistent tour. How confident are you of taking this all the way?
Well, we'll see. We'll see when the road starts going uphill, and when the climbers and the strong guys start lighting it up on the climb, and I'll probably know by the second lap. If you could interview me while we have one lap to go up there, I'll let you know then. Yeah. Cheers. Thanks. Cheers.
By a pair of those booties that fancies themselves as a young sprinter. But that stage that he refers to, stage 5, it will be a really interesting challenge for Dylan Kennett. It is not a super steep climb, but it is long enough to cause a few problems for the pure sprinters in this race. And we saw last year on that climb, it was on stage 2, so it was quite a bit earlier, and it did break the race up. Boris Valet was able to survive the climb. Some of the other sprinters didn't quite make it over the top. This time coming on stage 5, there'll be more fatigue. It will make it even harder for the sprinters. Plus, I'm of the view that this year, the peloton has some even stronger climbers than what it did last year. In particular, that Colombian team, Medellin, has shown themselves to be super aggressive. They are going to throw everything they've got in the tank at that climb on stage 5 every single time they go up there. But what the St. George team is doing well is they are creating a buffer for Dylan Kennett to be able to, if he does get dropped, whether it's, if he can survive at least until the final time up the climb and the team can stick with him and have a few riders support him, lose 30 seconds perhaps on that stage, but that would still potentially be enough for him to hold on to the orange jersey. Tomorrow will be another opportunity for them to contest the intermediate sprints, perhaps win another stage. He's getting greedy. He's had 3 second place finishes and now a win, but that is the strategy, and continue to take those time bonuses to get even more of a buffer before the all-important 5th stage. The Burgos BH crew, they look pretty calm and relaxed after the stage. Go with his hat on backwards and the glasses on the top of his head. That's the Dutchman on the team, the only Dutchman on the squad. That's Jet to bowl. But he speaks fluent Spanish. He also speaks Catalan. He speaks fluent English. He speaks pretty good French as well. His wife is Mexican, and he's one of the easiest guys to deal with from a media perspective. It was an entertaining day of racing. Let's take a look back at what happened on stage 3. Gaul got underway in Huzhou with a bang as they started in front of the Olympic Stadium. Olympic Athletic Stadium, the Hangzhou Olympic Sports Centre, I should say, which in May of 2017 was given first-class IAAF venue certification. And it's a venue that sits some 40,000 people. In addition to athletics, it can host basketball, volleyball, badminton and table tennis. It is a brilliant facility, and sport is very much on the rise in China, including their cycling, as they've got plenty of riders in this race who have been aggressive and looking for the breakaways. And that is precisely what happened as soon as the flag came in to get racing started. But as they went through the first of the intermediate sprints, last year's race winner Boris Vallet was going toe-to-toe with Dylan Kennett, but it was Kennett who got there first, and it was Vallet who finished in 3rd spot. Einhorn was in 2nd position, which moved him slightly closer to the blue jersey for the best young rider classification. The green jersey wearer with this jersey on loan, Marco Benfato, the winner of the first stage. Benfato having a small mechanical problem that made me a little nervous for his fingers. It looked as if it was a shifting problem on the front derailleur. Perhaps the front derailleur was just rubbing on the chain ever so slightly. And he surrendered on trying to fix that on the move at 45 kilometres per hour. He likes his fingers perhaps just a bit too much. And then through to the second of the intermediate sprints, it was the Dutchman, Roy Efting, who got the maximum points and the 3 second time bonus. Kennett in 2nd spot, a 2 second time bonus. And this time, Boris Vallet with the black helmet on the left-hand side of the screen. Unfortunately for him, it was 4th. So he missed out on any of the time bonuses. Kennett further extending his lead. Wasn't too long after that the most significant breakaway of this year's race was formed off the front as they made their way across the stunning Long Bridge, which when we got the aerial shot made it very much look like a Chinese dragon, the Bei Long Bridge. This was the breakaway group that went off the front. Turik from the Israel Cycling Academy team, having started the day in 13th place overall at 30 seconds down. Heading through the Jingzhou intermediate sprint, the 3rd and final intermediate sprint on today's stage. He collected the maximum time bonus, 3 seconds, plus the 5 points in the race for the green jersey. Aloya in 2nd position as they went through in the shadows of the Chengxing government building, which is where they'll be hosting the stage presentations. That breakaway group of 2, they were then shortly after joined by Razim of the Sempura team, but that didn't last for too much longer. After building up a maximum lead of 1 minute and 6 seconds, eventually they were caught just on 5.5 kilometres remaining. The peloton was then all together, and the sprinters were desperately trying to get organised. The Israel Cycling Academy, they had the advantage of having Turik in the breakaway all day long, so they had fresher legs when it came to the lead out, Whereas the St. George Continental team, they'd been doing the chasing, so their resources had been reduced. Then at 500 metres to go, it was every man for himself. It got a little messy. Kennett got balked somewhat and was shuffled back a fair bit, but found clear space, found some momentum, squeezed through on the right, and won by perhaps 2 or 3 centimetres. It was enough, but just had to be won, and he collected stage honours. Mikael Ram in second position, Yusuf Rugugu in third spot. Kennett collecting the win. After the stage win, even Kennett himself looked across with a little bit of disbelief. He took the win. It was Ram in second spot, Rugugu in third position, Efting was in fourth. Last year's winner, Valet, in fifth position. Yesterday's stage winner, Matteo Bellucci, was in sixth spot. Importantly for Dylan Kennett, the stage victory today, another 10-second time bonus, so he's creating that buffer in the battle for the orange jersey and the general classification. And here it is, he now moves out to a 27-second advantage. He started the day at 12 seconds ahead of Matthias Brandl, whose teammate Mikael Ram moves to third position at 33 seconds behind. Michael Vink, the teammate of Dylan Kennett, is at 35 seconds behind. Boris Valet at 36. Then Roy Efting. As we move on to the green jersey for the points classification, Kennett continues to build up a significant buffer there. He's 13 points ahead of Boris Valet, as Mikael Ram is into third position. He finds himself at 16 points behind, as too does Yusuf Rugugu, the rider from Algeria. Benfato and Bellucci, the teammates from Androni, are in fifth and sixth position. In the battle for the blue jersey, this is tight. This is the best young rider classification. It's Emilia Jima who's leading ahead of Blake Quick by just 1 second. It's then Itamar Einhorn who's at 7 seconds behind. Razim, who got into the breakaway today, finds himself at 9 seconds in fourth position. And Eric Bergstrom rounds out the top 5 at 14 seconds behind. Einhorn today, he collected a 2-second time bonus at the first of the intermediate sprints. Post-stage debrief for the stage presentation. A lot to discuss between these men. There's plenty happened in the final few hundred metres. That's Brett Dutton in the black t-shirt, just passing over the runners to Dylan Kennett. Brett Dutton is the team manager of the St. George Continental squad. And the rider from the Israel Cycling Academy with the cap on is Raim. He was second on the stage. This is Rugugu, about to step up for third position. And the other rider that is there from the Israel Cycling Academy team, that is Daniel Turek, who will be awarded the most combative on today's stage. Yusuf Rugugu, a rider from Algeria, stepping out onto the podium. One of the more experienced men in this race. He has ridden the Volta a España on 2 occasions. But he's gone across to position number 2 on the podium, as opposed to position number 3, and he's now getting the swap nice and quickly as the Estonian Mikael Ram from the Israel Cycling Academy. He knows where spot number 2 is, and the man that knows where spot number 1 is today's stage winner, Dylan Kennett. Deserving win for not just Kennett, but for the St. George Continental team. They did the lion's share of the work today at the front of the peloton, and after 3 second-place finishes, Kennett himself said it was becoming a little frustrating, continually finishing in second spot. He now gets stage honours. He'll have another opportunity tomorrow. Stage 4 again tomorrow. It does suit him. Similar scenario to what they were confronted with on today's stage in terms of the nature of the terrain. Slight rise in the final few hundred metres on tomorrow's stage. Circuit race though tomorrow. 10 laps of the circuit. It will be to the liking of Kenneth Upshaw, 116 kilometres on tomorrow's stage. Dylan Kennett, he's won the stage after 3 second-place finishes. He now extends his advantage in the battle for the orange jersey. He continues to lead the Tour of Taihu Lake as he looks forward to stage 4. Until next time, it's bye for now. The end of stage 1, he remained at the top of the general classification, and in fact each stage since collecting the leader's jersey he has extended his overall advantage. It's a race that has brought him plenty of success, or he has delivered plenty of success at this race. Last year he won the opening prologue, he then won stage 3 as he wins stage 3 again in 2019. One jersey off, another one to come, as he wasn't wearing the green jersey today. That was being worn by Marco Benfatto, but it certainly is Dylan Kennett who's leader of the green jersey classification, the points competition. And with his consistency, it's a significant advantage that he is building up in this classification. He's been a medalist at Junior World Championships on the track, Dylan Kennett in the Omnium. Could play a significant role for New Zealand at the Olympic Games next year on the track as well, particularly in their team's pursuit squad, which the Kiwis historically have always done well in the team's pursuit. Skoda, the sponsors of the green jersey classification, just as they are at the Tour de France and the Vuelta a España. Nice aerial shot of the festivities that are happening in front of the 4 government buildings in Jiangxi. He's going to need some excess luggage to be able to get home, Dylan Kennett, at the conclusion of this race with the amount of jerseys and soft toys that he's been collecting. This is Emilia Chima, who still looks like the body's a little rigid after yesterday's crash, understandably so. Blue jersey for the best young rider, the riders born after the 1st of January 1997. This is a classification that he won last year. You can see the damage on the left elbow of Emilia Chima. He still threw his hat in the ring for the sprint finish today, but understandably his legs just weren't quite there on this occasion. He didn't finish inside the top 10 on today's stage. In fact, his brother was just slightly in front of him, finishing in at 16th position, as Imerio finished in 21st place on today's stage. Just a 1 second lead in the race for the blue jersey. It's Blake Quick who's in 2nd spot in the race for blue. But Blake Quick, he's not chasing the blue jersey. He might like to have the blue jersey, but Blake's main objective